What should your cabinets be made out of? Well, cabinets are made out of wood, of course, but to suggest that they're just made out of wood is not necessarily true. And you may see it even advertised that way. These cabinets are all wood. Well, that doesn't really mean that they're only made of wood. It means that they're made of plywood. And what they're suggesting is that they're not made of particle board, although that's usually not necessarily true either. And if you look deep enough, you're going to find examples of particle board or other composite materials in nearly every plywood that, we make cabinetry out of. Whether it's in the walls of the cabinet boxes, or in the drawer boxes, or maybe in the toe kick moldings, or something is going to have layers of material in it that consist of both, actual solid wood layers, but also composite layers. Usually those are going to be pressed and glued materials, often, something we would call particle board. MDF is an example of one of these. It's commonly used for all sorts of different things, and it is, the right material for its applications. When it comes to cabinetry, why do we like wood cabinets? Well, cabinetry tends to, especially in the kitchen and bathroom, be in an area where you're going to have certain types of stresses. Environmental stress like water and rapid heating and cooling is one of them. And another one is the weight of a countertop or dishes or whatever other things are going to be in the kitchen that are going to be adding weight to the structure of the cabinet box itself. So you want a material that is strong, you want a material that is sturdy, you want a material that is going to be resistant to those environmental stresses. And plywood is really the only answer there. So there are materials that we would consider particle board. We would call melamine with the plastic on the surface of it, or particle board core. Those are still really plywood materials because pretty much all of them are going to have a laminated material on the surfaces of them. But those are going to be like paper thin veneers. So when something is called a particle board core, or melamine, that means that most of the interior of that is made of what we call particle board. So there's all sorts of places where that material is perfect for the application and it is strong enough. It is weak at the edges of it, but it is very strong at the faces of it, where some of them are much more water resistant than a wood would be if it is the melamine veneer, or even a pre-finished, very thin but pre-finished wood veneer can have the same effect. So what a plywood really is it's just pieces of a material, and you can see with these little pieces of wood here, you can see the direction that the grain goes, and the direction is going in a horizontal, as I'm holding it here, direction on all three of these. Well, one of the benefits of plywood over an actual solid wood, and when we're talking about plywood veneers, is that as they're placed together, these thinner pieces are put together to make a thicker, stronger piece, but they're not placed together like this. They're placed together with their grains going in opposing directions. So the more of these you stack up in going in different directions, the more of a net or a grid you're creating with the grain of those materials. And that mesh makes them much, much stronger, and it makes it so they can't split. So with a piece of wood like this that has a very, parallel grain line in it, it's not uncommon to see those things split and open up, right? Obviously this piece, I'm not able to just with my hand split it apart, but you could imagine if it were to, easily split along the grain lines. That happens with, furniture, it happens with picnic benches, it happens with fences all the time, right? You see it all the time where solid wood materials split, warp, twist, crack, whatever it is. And that's why cabinets aren't actually made of solid wood or all wood, even if they say they are. They're made of plywood, so that they're stronger at a much lighter weight and lower cost to manufacture, because who needs a solid wood cabinet, right? And that's really the big argument for solid wood. The argument of, plywood versus particle board is really about, water. Is this, going to be more likely to absorb moisture, swell up over time, and, fall apart, right? Or show signs of wear. And in a lot of cases, you can make an argument that particle board is inferior, let's say, to a solid wood plywood, or to a plywood that is made of laminated layers of solid wood and composite materials. The argument for all solid wood, though, is one that I think really comes down to either a misconception or a personal choice that is comparing apples to oranges, right? Solid wood, when used in furniture, makes a lot of sense. You know, it's going to be stronger, it's going to be sturdier, it requires a different type of craftsmanship. You know that it's most likely not going to be made on a computer-controlled machine somewhere and shipped across the world and, you know, sold at IKEA or whatever it is, right? That also means in some cases it's going to be heavier. In most cases, it means it's going to be considerably more expensive, you know, but there's absolutely some truth to the quality of the craftsmanship of it. And you know, whether or not that is something that is built to last and what the value is there. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And what I hear most is people telling me that solid wood has a greater value because it's going to last longer. It's going to be, you know, more sturdy and it'll last forever. Well, you're not going to own your cabinets forever. Nobody does. Even if you've had that home for a long time, unless it's historical, those cabinets are getting torn out and put in when the new revolution of materials or even style changes, right? There's going to be another countertop that, you know, surpasses the stone ones we're putting in now that is going to have some slightly different requirements, and it'll be a compelling reason to change your cabinets. You've got tired of the white shaker look anyway, so let's, you know, go to oak raised panel with the arch top again. Why not? Let's bring it back. You heard it here first. I didn't actually say that. So what it really comes down to is what is the purpose? What do you need out of the cabinet? Once they're all screwed together with its, even if it's particle board, not even plywood, particle board, once they're all screwed together, they are strong enough that they're not going to fall apart. And in most cases, especially depending on the proper thickness, they can support the weight of the granite or the quartz or whatever else, you know, you're gonna put onto it. So it's not really a question of the stability of the finished product there. So if it's a hope chest that you plan on passing on to your, you know, children and hopefully their children and yada yada, like, yeah, make it out of, you know, solid oak or hickory or whatever. I don't, you know, that makes sense. But when it's a cabinet that is going to be screwed to the wall and screwed to all these other cabinets and then eventually glued to a countertop and is itself sitting on top of a solid, you know, platform surface, like, it's not going anywhere. So the expectation that it needs to be made out of this sort of bulletproof construction, I think is misplaced, because not only is it going to cost way more money and take a lot more time to produce, using way more valuable materials to produce, because let's face it, one of the benefits of particle board and plywood is you're using garbage looking materials to make very productive products that perform really, really well. So you're able to just take the good looking part of the tree that's left and make those veneers into the A-grade plywood that we make cabinets out of or make cabinet doors out of and all of that stuff. So it's much more effective to use more of the material and efficient to use more of the material, which makes the end product, of course, much more much more affordable to the end user, right? So if it's not a, you know, a pirate chest that you're going to bury out in the sand somewhere, plywood is really the way to go. Particle board has its uses, and in some cases, if it's a matter of, you know, of keeping the costs down, there are ways that you can extra reinforce the inside of your sink bases to minimize the risk of using a particle board. In fact, there's likely going to be an upcoming video on that on my channel here, so check it out again sometime soon and see if it's there. As always, like and subscribe. Of course, leave a comment for your chance to be featured in the comments on this very video, and I'll see you again soon.